Okay, I found them. They're right here. Just be house to business, probably.
Oh, I'll try this one. Let me see real quick.
All right, so this looks like paperwork, mostly kind of heavy. This is something plastic. Most likely like rods for some type of device or something. What's cool is it changes colors, a Viridian symbol. I think there's a lot of techie, kind of like computer savvy people that live among Viridian. Believe it or not, the internet is sparse. They're, depending on where you're at, it can be hard to access internet, but they're probably all on a fiber optic connection. Okay. So this is a delivery, which will be for at least 30 miles for the distance. Duration's 42 minutes, and arrival will be at 9:12. Looks like business supplies is what I'm going to classify as the delivery. We're headed out to Plano again. Last night we went out to a hospice in Plano. We're gonna come up on this bridge here, which is the Walton Walker Techspress. It's kind of a toll road, but not really. They say that it is, but it actually isn't. And then they're building this new thing here. I'm gonna roll the window down. And this is kind of a cool little view of Dallas way up on this bridge here, looking to the right. Josie Records birthday sales, a 9th birthday. Everything is 15% off. New vinyls are 20% off, and used vinyls are 30% off. They're right there under that bridge. Josie Records, right next to Capiters. Right off LBJ. It's office space building. Office space type of building. It's a movie by Mike Judge, 1999. That's right, one of the buildings right over here. Red Stapler. Look at this 7-Eleven right here. It's a pretty big one. They have Laredo tacos. Or Laredo, I guess Laredo tacos. weird on the Amber Alert today. This is called the Point Deerfield. Okay, we'll be doing what's called a return ticket. So we'll go back to the returner and drop it back off at their door. All right, this is a return, so we'll be going back to Arlington. We're gonna find some defense mechanisms on these things. For one thing, there was only one name listed. So there was not a second name, so there wasn't a first and last name. That's one way that you can fight a return before you even go. Also, one way is you can find out if it's an apartment or house. It doesn't say, so it could look like a house. So that one would be very difficult, unless you know all the apartment addresses in Dallas. We're arriving at 10:19 for the return. All right, I created a return ticket, but it's an incomplete address. So I'm gonna see if I can reverse it again. Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, they were there, but he had to get in touch with me to get the apartment number. So I sent through customer service a message saying the person that delivered, the person that received it. Meaning it was like basically a kind of message report kind of thing. It's hard to explain. I sent the message in the person that was receiving it, meaning I put their name into the messenger to the support. And that's right by Nebraska Furniture Mart, which is right next door. Grandscape is what they call that area. So that sign says right there. It's kind of Plano, kind of Frisco. There's probably more kind of in between. It's wherever Nebraska Furniture Mart is. You can look it up on Google. All right, this snack break is brought to you by Jack Link's Beef Stick and Cheese. And there's the old cross we used to live by. We lived by the fields when we were at the mansions at Sunset Ridge. That's where Linda and I lived. And that's where Grace originated at. Was at that apartment complex. Grace, aka Where Vlog. She developed the name when I got to Fort Worth. It became aka Where Vlog. The original title was Grace, based on a fighting film of the same name. And then it switched into a werewolf movie. I'm still working on the script. And it is not a complete crescent moon. And there they are. We lived right in the center, right where the fields. The coyotes would go into that field and yap, and that's what created the werewolf movie from the fighting film. I was going to make a film kind of like Rocky, and then it turned into a werewolf movie. And it was all created right next to this place, First Baptist Church of Fields, and there's the cross, the wayside cross on top of the church. We lived there for 2 years at the mansions at Sunset Ridge, and it's supposedly haunted by a ghost named Amanda Wilhite. I know her name is Wilhite. Brooks. It's Amanda Wilhite Brooks. And she fell from the 3rd balcony and died. Her companion was put into critical condition. Don't know who that was. She went to UNT. She's supposedly a ghost that lives there. And there was emails of like a woman screaming all day long, and nobody was, you know, like, I wasn't there during the day. They said they heard screaming during the day, and we weren't usually there during the day. We were always working. We'd always be there at nighttime. If you look at the vlogs, there are many night vlogs of that apartment complex. But they said that the screaming would happen all throughout the day, like loud screaming. I never heard it. We did get noise complaints. One from One time we were playing as a band of music. That one they knocked on the door and we got quiet. Then another time was because of the fire alarm went off when we were making noodles, and the alarm went off. We couldn't get it to turn off quick enough, so they filed a complaint against us for the fire alarm going off, which is ridiculous. I was thinking about other screenplays. The score is actually a pretty good one. It's Frank Oz. It's a puppeteer. It's Robert De Niro, Marlon Brando. And Marlon Brando is very charming, and he was older. It was before he died. Robert De Niro is actually pretty good. And the one that's a standout in the score, which I saw it in Los Angeles, is Edward Norton. Edward Norton is very, very good. He plays the inside guy, which is a janitor that's a mentally... Well, he's a normal thief, so he's a normal guy that, you know... Well... not normal, no thief is normal, but he's a pretty talented thief that joins their little score, their little plan, their little escapade to take this priceless scepter from kind of like a security storage unit thing. This thing is like a priceless scepter that can be sold for millions of dollars on the market. And Edward Norton plays the janitor guy that's also mentally challenged. I don't know the characters' names. I'll have to go back and look at it. It is a nice little heist film that De Niro did with Marlon Brando before Marlon Brando passed away. And believe it or not, it's one of Marlon Brando's greatest works. He's very charming, bright-eyed. He has an insult line in it. I don't know if you can hear this because it's all... Hang on. So Marlon Brando has an insult line to De Niro in score. He says, you know, you look horrible. What's your secret? You know, he walks up to Brando. Brando put a little bit of weight on for that role, I think. He's actually thinner now in Killers of the Flower Moon, I think, than he was in the score. He was a little hefty in that. And Edward Norton was pretty much in shape in that. He was playing a thief that was also a jogger. He plays like a mentally challenged guy. And then Brando plays kind of the organizer. He's kind of the mastermind behind the stealing of the scepter, you know, which they just go in underground. It's a nice little film. Frank Oz is a puppeteer. He was the guy who wrote it, or at least directed it. I don't know if he wrote it, but he was the director behind the film. He may have had some hand in writing it. If you know anything about Frank Oz, he was behind, if I'm not mistaken, the whole character of Yoda in the Star Wars trilogy, at least in Empire Strikes Back. So Frank Oz was, well, I'm talking about Frank Oz. Frank Oz was actually the voice of Yoda in Empire Strikes Back. And then later on, he did a heist film called The Score, which he directed. He also helped out a lot with Sesame Street. He was big with Sesame Street. I don't know the mystery on Frank Oz and why he decided to go and do this heist film, although it was clever and fun to watch. But he was a voiceover artist, really, you know? It's just a very strange kind of thing, you know? It just kind of stuck out. I was like, I never passed up The Score because, you know, I was in Los Angeles at the time trying to break into Hollywood as an actor, and Marlon Brando was in it. So we were all told to look up to Marlon Brando. And I went to the movie theater and I watched it. I thought it was very entertaining. I liked the soundtrack, you know, the music and the cinematography. I thought was halfway decent. There was nothing showy about The Score. It's not a showy heist film like Ocean's 11 and things like that. It wasn't show. It didn't feel like they were showing off. They were simply just telling a story. It reminded me of something that David Mamet would have written, because I know Mamet has done some heist films and stuff, but it was actually directed by Frank Oz. So it kind of sticks out because I'm like, this guy helped out with Sesame Street. You know, he was the voice of Yoda. Why is he behind a heist film? Anybody knows, leave a comment. And I'm going to cut from here to conserve vlog. So Frank Oz goes all the way back to England, and he came to Montana, I believe around like 1950s. And his parents were puppeteers. So he was a child of a puppeteer. He did get involved in being a puppeteer eventually on Sesame Street. He was one of their main puppeteers. And then he worked as the voice of Yoda. He may have been behind some of the puppeteer or the puppetry of Yoda. And then eventually down the line, way down the line, like in the turn of the century of 1999 or so, he constructed or he directed the film, The Score, with Marlon Brando. It has nothing to do with puppets, other than the actors, you know? There's no puppetry in it. But you got to watch it for Edward Norton's performance. He should have been nominated. Edward Norton should have been nominated for Best Supporting Actor for that. I don't know if he was. I have to go back. I don't think he was. He looked over. That film was looked over. It was a little silent one. One of the greatest performances that you can see is Edward Norton's performance in that. It's an amazing performance. No one talks about it. Marlon Brando's charming in it. He's very funny. And De Niro takes the role very serious. He takes this very serious high-end thief that tricks. He doesn't really trick. He's more crafty than Edward Norton's style of thievery. I'll have to look at it through the character point of view and kind of analyze the screenplay. I don't know if it was an original, but I'll kind of look it over. It's a good little script. So The Score was actually written by Cairo Salam, and it was an original screenplay. So The Score was originally thought up as a story from Daniel E. Taylor, who worked with Paul Newman on a story in 1990 called Mr. and Mrs. Bridge. Now, Carol Salam, if I'm pronouncing that right, was one of the screenplay writers, along with Lim Dobbs and Scott Marshall Smith, which is a U.S. writer, and then there was Lim Dobbs, who's a U.K. writer. So they all kind of joined forces to work on this script. I think it was like 3 screenplay writers, and a storyteller. Well, the guy that created the story. So it was like four minds behind an original screenplay. Don't think it got nominated. You know, it was a very structured story, nothing special about it, but it was a nice little piece. It's a nice little score. It's a nice little piece of movie. It did very well. All right, we'll cut that. I love these little bridges, though. You notice I do a lot of under bridges stuff. There's bridges all over the world. But Dallas, when you get to Dallas, the bridges are much larger and wider. Fort Worth has some nice ones, but the Dallas one, you can really tell you're in Dallas. They're longer. The mixed masters are, you know, it's 1 million more people. We're only on North Richland Hills right here. We go pretty far back into Fort Worth. We pass downtown. I'm not going to tell you where I'm at. I'm not crazy. But, you know, it's an older place. It's an older apartment complex, been around for a while. But you know, you're not really supposed to. Some vloggers kind of hint. Michael Scott kind of does a little bit, but I think he just gives his address to a. It's almost kind of like a PO box, but he does show an address on his box openings when people send him things. But I don't think that's his real address. It could be. I wouldn't want to figure it out. But people list their addresses, you know, on the white pages. You can find them under their name, and that's their address. But I was told not to do it. Don't vlog the outside of your place. You know, keep it kind of a secret, or try not to. But people can find out. But you know what I mean. I usually cut off on the vlog somewhere around downtown Fort Worth. I would like to live downtown Fort Worth. It's a nice little city downtown. I've talked to some Californians that have come to Texas, and they do like living in Fort Worth. I've talked to a few of them. They're like, yeah, I really enjoy Fort Worth. It's a cool, quaint little town. There's a cool music scene. There's a really good theater scene. Stage West is great. Hip Pocket Theater's one of the world-renowned theaters with mime and puppetry, and that's a theater I trained at. But they also do some realistic acting. It's mostly based. Johnny Simon's last show, I thought it was pretty real, and he's a mime, but he's also an actor too. And I thought it was all going to be a mime show, because a lot of Johnny's one-man shows are mime shows. So he doesn't really say anything. He doesn't even make a sound. He does mime. But this last one he did, which was old and in the way, was Johnny acting. And he was doing like a one-man show talking to the audience. And it was very real. Kind of Sam Shepard real, if you know what I mean. you know, there was a little style in there. But Johnny's very old, in his like 70s or something. Or I think I heard a rumor he was like 80 or something crazy. But he was a hippie. He went to the Navy. He was a Navy guy. And I don't know what war. I think maybe Korean. He did do another show. I always call it Ancient Echoes of a Distant Youth. I don't think it's Distant Echoes of an Ancient Youth. I think it's Ancient Echoes of a Distant Youth. We'll just say it's called that for now. But it was pretty good. It was some talking, but it was voiceover. So he did, I think, mostly mime, and then there was some dance. He was a little younger when he did that, maybe 4 or 5 years ago or something. This one, he's a little older, and he hurt his arm. And he had to get, I think, a rod put in his arm or something crazy. And that he used that as part of the performance. And it was very believable. Now, he is older, and it looked like, you know, at times he was in a lot of pain, but you couldn't tell, you know, because you couldn't tell if he was acting or if it was real. But the monologue went on for a very long time. I think the show is a little under an hour. And that's very difficult to do at an older age. And it looked like it was all memorized and very, you know, well thought out. And he also communicated with the audience, you know, bringing the audience into the show. And it made you feel kind of warm and cuddly, not like Ancient Echoes of a Distant Youth, which was years back. It kind of was darker show. That I thought Old and in the Way was more of a comedy, and it was Johnny kind of being funny and warm. I liked that aspect of Johnny. Now he can do that. I saw him originally in the Nose show, and he was amazing. It was like one of the most amazing performances I've ever seen live, other than Marcel Marceau. I'm a big fan of mime. I always have been. But I think I first got introduced to mime on Sesame Street, and so I saw a mime on Sesame Street, and then I used to go in front of the mirror. This is when I was younger, like junior high. This is before I met Johnny, before I even knew who Marcel Marceau was, didn't know anything about mime at all. And I just would go in front of the mirror and I would just do mime. I would just start doing mime. Now, I used to break dance too in junior high. We learned how to moonwalk, which was something Michael Jackson learned from Marcel Marceau. And I learned to moonwalk in a very strange way, because you could get a lot of chicks moonwalking. And so what I did, there was a girl named Dusty, and she had blonde hair. Everyone wanted her. And she took me out in the hallway one time to teach me to moonwalk. Moonwalk is a Michael Jackson moonwalk. And she goes, you're kind of getting it, but your feet have to stay flat on the ground. And then you bring the heel of your foot upwards on the ball of your foot, and then you push the foot back where the foot stays flat. And you kind of slide it, you know. And a lot of people, when they learn it, they keep the ball of their foot kind of first and arched, and then they try to do, you know, it's like they're doing like a werewolf moon walk, you know. It's not the proper moonwalk. So what I did to keep my foot on the ground, or my heel, really it's the heel on the ground, foot flat on the ground to do the moonwalk, is I got up on this, my dad had this alcove on the game room that looked out through a window. So it was an alcove that went in, and then there was a window. And I got up kind of like where the blinds were. You couldn't really see me because the blinds were down, but the sun was coming through. And I had my socks on. And I had to kind of bend over a little bit because it was kind of like an attic. So it was like at an angle, going like that, you know. As I zoomed in, you couldn't hear anything I was saying. So I put my foot flat on the ground, and I was kind of bent over so my foot would rest further down, flat on the ground. And then I slid it that way, and then stepped forward and slid it that way. And I was like, oh, this is the moon walk. And then I could jump off that, you know, because I was up on this alcove up high and bent over. So I'd have to, my foot would have to be flat on the ground. It's like pressing on the ground. So then I got on a regular sized ground and I was just going on the carpet, moon walking all over everywhere for nonstop. I'd go to school, moonwalk down the hallway. My friends would see me moonwalk, like, well, it looks like you're walking forward, but you're going backwards. Wow. Guy's really going quick. And I really figured it out, you know, and I was proud of that. And that was my first kind of introduction to mime. And then I think after a while, I saw a mime on Sesame Street. I got up in front of the mirror and I just started, you know, pulling a rope that wasn't there. A lot of people, I think a lot of kids did this, and, you know, like touching a wall that was not there, opening a door. I was doing all this stuff for like hours on end, you know, in front of the mirror to really perfect the technique. Later in life, I would come across where I'd have to use mime in performance, and it was easier to kind of access. And my mime teacher noticed, you know, he noticed, okay, this guy has already a little bit of technique built in, you know, for mime. So we really got along. But it's very pressuring, it's very time consuming, and it's very difficult, and it does take concentration and imagination. Everything that an actor has would go into mime. Imagination, and then of course dance. You'd have to bring in dance. But a mime never leaves the ground, never jumps, and the mime never speaks. That's what makes mime. All right. Where's Kitty? Oh, you're watching I Love Lucy?
I don't show those photos too often.
Where's Kitty?
I don't know. I was just up. There he is.
Oh, he's following me. Did you feed him?
Dirty shoes? Yes, I did.
All right, I'll turn off the dirty shoes. I'll take them off. All right, come on, Kitty. Did you drop something on the floor? This is Texas Roadhouse. I know, Kitty, I know. Did you feed him? We've got too much footage for a cat food commercial, sorry. We're gonna have to, but I am gonna show them what I'm feeding you. Tonight's cat food commercial that we're not doing is brought to you by Roasted Chicken Entree. Look at those blue eyes. Ooh, Kitty just loves me. You're on my dirty shoes, Kitty? All right, we'll cut here. We'll do something. Come on. Entertain them. Come on, Kitty. Do it. Come on. Entertain. Go running after it. They'll love it. There, come on, Kitty. Come on, Kitty. Just entertain. Come on. You got it. All right. Come on, Kitty. Oh, you got hold of it. Now hold on to that ball. Hold on with all your might. Hang on tight. Come on, Kitty. Get a hold of that. You got a big one. We're gonna need a bigger boat. Come on, Kitty. Come on. Dun, dun. Dun dun. Dun 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 dun.